If I can get this 1985 HBO broadcast up and running, I'll have the coolest house on the block! Quiet over there, sock puppet Vinny. I'm trying to get this broadcast up and running for me and the potential honeys. What?
Well, I'm trying to patch up this hole.
Vin, don't cover that up. That's a rare Fraggle hole.
A what hole?
Oh, you know. 2, 3, 4, dance your cares away. Worries for another day. Let the Fraggles play. Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock.
Down in Fraggle Rock?
Fraggle Rock is... Wait a second. Ta-da! Ah, that's much better. Fraggle Rock is a franchise created by Jim Henson that originally aired from 1983 and ran till 1987. The pitch was the show to end all war. When I first heard about this concept, I kind of laughed it off, but then I thought about it a little more and realized that was perfectly in character for Jim Henson. He was just coming off The Muppet Show and people were eagerly awaiting his next project. So, he decided to use his platform to spread a positive message. Whenever I talk to people about Henson, they always bring up the Muppets or Sesame Street, and if they're really cool, they'll bring up Dark Crystal and Labyrinth. But I rarely hear Fraggle Rock in those conversations. This speaks to Henson and his wide influence over pop culture. But what is Fraggle Rock? Well, originally the pitch for the show was titled Woozle World, and it starred 5 main Woozles, each representing a certain aspect of a well-rounded personality. Eventually, Woozles turned into Fraggles, but the idea of 5 characters of different traits remained. There was Gobo, the curious and adventurous one, Wembley, the indecisive and often frightened Fraggle, Red, the outgoing and fun-loving character, Moki, the thoughtful and imaginative individual, and Boober, the cynic who loves laundry. Boober. His name sounds like Goober. One of the roadblocks that Henson and the crew had when making Sesame Street was the limitations with what they could show their international audiences. For example, something relevant in one country may not be as prominent in another. So, in order to work around this, Fraggle Rock was specifically designed for an international audience. The Fraggles could easily be dubbed over in any language, but the human sections varied from country to country. These were called wraparound segments, and they were catered to different countries. Here in North America, the wraparound human segment centered around an inventor named Doc and his puppet dog named Sprocket. In some other countries, though, the Jim Henson Company worked with local production teams in order to make the human segments more relatable to their respective countries. Britain's segments took place in a lighthouse, with Sprocket's companion being a sea captain named the Captain. In France, it took place in a bakery where the human was also named Doc, but Sprocket was renamed Croquet. In German, both characters remained Doc and Sprocket, with the German-appropriate title, Die, Fraggles, with Jim Henson's Muppets. Along with the human host being more relatable to their native country's audience, they also had Uncle Traveling Matt do segments in the human world relevant to their respective countries. Oh yeah, Gobo has an Uncle Traveling Matt who explores the outside world and writes the other Fraggles about his wildly misinformed findings. His name is also a pun referring to the filmmaking term that allows an object in motion to be compositive with a different area than the existing background. These international co-productions lined up nicely with Henson's vision of world peace, and in the world of Fraggle Rock, there were 4 main species that all needed each other to survive in some way. The main focus was on the Fraggles, which makes sense because the show is called Fraggle Rock. Fraggles are these underground creatures that are around 1 to 2 feet tall and have a primal inclination to run around and have fun. Heck yeah to that. Having fun and frolicking around is cool. Don't try to be indifferent and cold in fear of people perceiving you as silly. You gotta embrace your passions because that's a huge part of what makes you, you.
Hey there, I'm Emma, aka Fruit Bats. You might know me from TikTok.
Oh, I know that one.
Good job.
An app.
I'm here to tell you it is super cool to be passionate about the things you love. As you can see, I love me some art, horror movies, nostalgic stuff, lots of stuff. But of course, Fraggle Rock. I've got plushies, shirts, slippers. I've got a hat. All sorts of stuff to rep my love for the Fraggles. My Fraggle fanaticism, if you will. Said love has even leaked into my art. Well, you got nothing to say now? I could just give it to... Anyway, when we unleash our passions in whatever way we do that, it can lead you to create something really cool that not only satisfies your artistic hunger, but can also make other people really happy in the process. You can inspire other people too. So let that freaky Fraggle flag fly. The flag with the solid mark on it. Gage, put it in. But yeah, I certainly did that with my Fraggle Rock deep dive videos. The runtime's only like 9.5 hours, but don't worry. That was just season 1 and 2.
You can't get rid of us that easy.
Back to Gage.
Man, I gotta up my Fraggle game. What was I talking about again? Oh yeah! The world of Fraggle Rock also contains doozers, which are underground creatures. They're smaller than Fraggles with the urge to build towers, which the Fraggles then eat. They're mainly in the background in the first season, but from the second season on, we get to see how they operate and what sort of society they've built. The main doozer is Cotterpin, who wants to draw instead of build. She's a maverick among the doozers who live to work. Outside, on one side of the rock, there are the Gorgs, who manage a garden and are under the impression they're rulers of the universe, though we never see any of their subjects. In fact, we only see 3 of the Gorgs. There's Pa Gore, the stubborn, self-imposed king, Ma Gore, the caring queen with a crippling fear of Fraggles, and Junior, the curious, but not so bright youngin'. Close by the Gorg's garden is the Oracle of the Fraggle, the all-knowing, the all-seeing trash heap. Yeah. She also has 2 rodent-like assistants named Philo and Gunge, who give her the same lovely introduction I did. But yeah, the main source of wisdom of this show is a sentient pile of garbage who, I might say, slays. And of course, there are the humans and where the Fraggles call outer space. Doc is our representation of the human race, which the Fraggles refer to as silly creatures. You may think the term is offensive, but when Doc first hears it, he goes...
Don't apologize. I think it's a very good name for it.
What's beautiful about this ecosystem is that all these species need each other to survive, whether they're conscious of it or not. It's this lovely symbiotic system that makes every species crucial to the world, which I think is quite profound. When creating the show, Jim Henson and his team wanted a connecting element to link all the different species, and they settled on water. This was also a huge plot point in the first season of the Apple TV Plus reboot of the show called Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock. The first episode of Fraggle Rock premiered on January 10th, 1983 on HBO to rave reviews from critics and audiences alike. Critics loved it for showing audiences moral insight without coming off as preachy, and audiences of all ages were loving the show for its unique approach to life lessons. Fraggle Rock was also popular in its ratings. In fact, more kids in the demographic of 2 to 11 watch Fraggle Rock over HBO's cablecast of the original Star Wars. Remember, this was the 1980s before you could get the Star Wars trilogy in a cool VHS box set, though the first one was released on VHS tape in May 1982. Not everyone had a VCR player in the early 80s. Okay, Star Wars rant over. Never talking about the Star Wars on this channel again. This was good enough news to where the Canadian Broadcasting Company, CBC, moved the show from its original 5:30 time slot to a 7 p.m. time slot in order to reach a wider audience. The original Fraggle Rock ran for 5 seasons from 1983 to 1987, which was soon followed up by an animated version of the series in the late 1987 on NBC. The Fraggles didn't come back for a series until 2020 on Apple TV Plus for the quarantine-oriented Fraggle Rock. Rock On. Not a fan of the 2 rocks next to each other in the title, but there were a lot of restrictions back in those days. The current Fraggle Rock iteration is a reboot of the original series called Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock, which just finished up its 2nd season on Apple TV Plus, as of this recording. For a long time, there was a Fraggle Rock movie in development. From what I can find, as early as 2005, the Jim Henson Company was developing a Fraggle Rock movie where the core 5 Fraggles go out into the real world, or outer space to the Fraggles, much like in the hit 2011 movie The Smurfs, or 2004's Fat Albert, or 1996's Space Jam. The movie rights bounced around from studio to studio, And at one point, it even had Joseph Gordon-Levitt attached to star and produce. But ultimately, Fraggle Rock came back as a show on Apple TV+. Fraggle Rock Back to the Rock is more serialized than the original run. To be fair, the first series of Fraggle Rock had an overarching story, but if you caught a random episode on TV, you could usually follow the story pretty well. There's a new actor playing Doc, Lily Cooper. She's more of a practical scientist than the original Doc, with her work as a graduate student centering around marine biology. Don't get me wrong, I love making the youth more ecologically aware, but I also like a wacky canned dog food opener machine. Instead of broadly reviewing each series as a whole, I want to go over some of my favorite episodes and songs from the franchise. Spoiler alert, the animated series and Rock On aren't going to have any representation on my personal Fraggle Rock faves list. The animated series reuses songs and plot points from the original run, and Rock On has like 6-minute episodes with some old songs. So, it's time to Fraggle on up and get some catchy jams and some thoughtful tunes. A lot of folks' favorite episode is Season 1's Maroon, where Red and Boober almost die in a cave-in. They are an unusual pairing, with Red being so energetic and Boober being not as energetic, but it works really well with Boober giving a beautiful interpretation of life.
You know, I remember this one day, I was doing my laundry, and then this big soap bubble floated right up from the tub, and there it was, in front of my face, beautiful and shiny, and then it was gone.
Season 2's A Cave of One's Own finds the chaotic Red and the laid-back Moki becoming roommates, and shenanigans ensue. This was actually the idea of Red's actor, Karen Prell. Fun fact, she's also a CG animator who did work for early Pixar and was the lead animator on Portal 2's surprise villain Wheatley. Get your hands out of my childhood, Karen Prell! The only holiday special of the original run was called The Bells of Fraggle Rock. The traveling musician Cantus, played by the one and only Jim Henson, comes to Fraggle Rock to warn the Fraggles to ring the great bell, or their home will be frozen over. I won't spoil the ending, but it's one of my favorite holiday episodes of any show. My favorite episode of the original run is The River of Life, where Doc unintentionally pollutes the Fraggles' water supply, and only Boober was cautious enough not to drink it. Boober believes that if he returns Uncle Matt's postcard to outer space, he'll return the water to its regular state. The image of Boober kneeling towards the hole and talking to a force he can't understand is heartbreaking in the best possible way. He's the least adventurous out of the core Fraggles, but circumstances push him to make a plea for his entire species. Real powerful episode. The series finale is the last episode I'll talk about from the initial series. The Fraggles finally reveal themselves to Doc, who is moving away from his home, and where we spent the whole series. Jerry Parks does some incredible acting here, having a balance between overly eager curiosity and regret from moving away from these new friends he's made. It's an emotional payoff to a great series. For the reboot series, my favorite episode is actually the fourth one, The Glow. The archivist is coming to collect an artifact, an empty water bottle, from the Fraggles, and Boober's volubious tail starts glowing after he's experiencing high emotions. This whole episode, you're feeling Boober's anxiety, and it all culminates into this grand duet with Boober and the archivist, played by the wickedly talented Cynthia Erivo. An incredibly strong episode from the second season is titled I'm Pogie. Wembley dons Moki's old robe, which causes him to question his identity and whether his friends will accept him with this new robe. Doc is also struggling with an embarrassing karaoke video going around. By the way, Lily Cooper is a stage actor in real life, so this is a very unrealistic storyline. The last episode of Back to the Rock I want to talk about is the finale of the first season, where Gobo has to work with the Gorgs in order to restore the flow of water in Fraggle Rock. This was the episode where I went, Jim would be proud. It's incredibly impressive that along with their strong writing in these episodes, they also made one or two songs for every episode. Some of my favorite songs include Follow Me, One Heart, Workin', The Rock Goes On, Fun Is Here to Stay, and of course, the Fraggle Rock theme song. I will be playing none of those because YouTube's copyright system. When Fraggle Rock and its animated series ended, the Fraggles only popped up every now and then, including a Ben Folds 5 music video, Do It Anyway. The Fraggles are now back in Back to the Rock, and they're better than ever. I strongly encourage everyone with an Apple TV Plus subscription to watch it, no matter your age. Fraggle Rock may not have ended war, but, as Jim Henson intended, it made the world a little bit of a better place. Oh my goodness, that was a lot to go over. I feel like I need a release. Maybe a walk around the block. Or maybe
Said 1, 2, 3, come on and go with me. We're learning about the Fraggles around the block. Whoa, fun don't stop. Wop, bop, doodle, bop. It's a chip off the old rock. Bella came along, told me blah, blah, blah. Bella told me, get your boy, you can't drone on. But whoa, I can walk the walk. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's a chip off the old rock. You know, you gotta have smarts, you gotta have brains. When you got the goods, you know that I'll over-explain. Woo! It's Puppet Gage! Here he comes! Look out! Woo-hoo-hoo! Bella came along to bring me the blues. So Gage, Tim, you ain't got the views, but whoa! I knew it couldn't be knocked. No, whoa, 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 whoa! I'm a chip off the rock. Oh, I'm a chip off the old rock. Whew, I need to exercise more. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Making silly stuff requires a lot of time and effort. Special thanks to my patrons, Loveage, QFGlenn, Dangus, John Agnew, Super Swim Team 7, Megeara, John the Bopper, Parker, and a Nurchin. Thanks again for watching. More to come soon. I think I lost weight doing that song. Do I look lighter?